so we can.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's 6:30, and so I guess we can start the meeting, as it were. So call to order. The door is open, everybody can get in. So should we do
Roll call.
roll call? David Hefkin, here. Chris Lathrop, not here. Lou Radecki. John Mitchell.
Here.
Frank Sauter.
Here.
Okay. No, so we should do the pledge? You want to lead some of the
Yeah.
pledge this evening?
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
approval,
Of the last meeting, the special
approval
meeting.
of minutes of the last airport commission meeting.
Okay, I read them, and I make a motion to approve them.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No opposed, okay. Full business, the stormwater and T-hanger, nothing really concrete, they're still,
Hold on, reports, operations. That's next on the agenda.
operations, clubs, financials. Financials, anything from our new airport manager?
Oh, no,
Okay,
I guess I wasn't prepared for that.
but we're still working on that, so.
Everything going okay with your transitioning?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I've got that.
Okay, on that, isn't that gonna be like you and, Lou, the secretary, who's the treasurer? Or no, the treasurer's the town, but the,
Right, Lou is the secretary.
so he'll probably have to do that because that's going away from him.
Well, only the signing of the checks are going away from him. He'll still have the financials, he'll still talk about those, the bills will still come in to the airport manager and things like that. Nothing changes there,
Okay,
so nothing changes on that.
we'll be ready the next time. We can
Okay.
figure it out.
As we have to work on the budget. So, update for the stormwater project and T-hanger, nothing to report. Everything went out for bid. And they're still kind of working their way through the stuff. There's nothing earth-shattering to report on that.
But it is moving forward just a little bit.
Yep. New business, discuss possible vote on airport commissioner that will be the primary contact to make the reports to the town board.
I'd like to ask, Frank, could you do that since you're already on town board?
Well, I can, and that's what Larry used to do, but I honestly,
Miller used to do it too.
who?
Eddie Miller.
What, was he on this commission?
Yeah.
Well, okay, I don't have a problem doing that, but I do feel for the town's folks that because we only have quarterly meetings technically unless something comes up here, I think at least, say every other meeting, or at least every third, you should come and report on. Means that you're, the head commissioner, the chairman. Does that make sense?
Sure. Well, especially if something is earth-shattering, like if a contract or something.
Well, like this last one, day to day, there's nothing to report, you know?
Right, okay, we don't have to do that, except we did, you gotta remember, we had that special board meeting with the airport on July 17th, or June 17th, I think it was. And we all agreed that we were gonna convene, or at least you, come to the 14th meeting, because everybody was gonna get a chance on the commission here to look at the, ordinance for the airport, because nobody, remember, most people hadn't seen it on the commission, and just get back on track with that, so I believe you should be coming to the next meeting, because it was agreed to
Sure.
when we had that joint meeting, so you should come next Monday,
Okay.
6 PM on that, we can go over it, and things are getting worked out, we know that, and everything, moving in a positive fashion, but we'll just reiterate that next week, so on and so forth, but that was agreed to, and you should come to that.
So that'd be more of a special occasion then.
Well, it's our regular meeting, but
Right, but I mean, That was agreed upon on a special for as opposed
special.
to day-to-day stuff.
Yeah, not the day-to-day stuff, just when we have some special.
Just to go over the actual, again, airport ordinance.
Which led into 114, so, okay.
It's not a big deal, but we just need to go through it. We're getting things changed here, you know, like the checkbook and stuff like that. But it needs to be gone over, and it won't take much, because there's, I don't believe, too much to talk about. We, gentlemen, can go over anything they have next Monday, okay?
Okay. Then number 2, the new business.
Wait.
Good.
You're just gonna go to next town meeting only. It's not, you're not gonna go every time.
But not every time, maybe
Right.
Frank that.
And then Frank, you can take care of all the odd times, and I wanna make a note in here about that.
Right,
So
yes.
it's clear.
If something bigger financially is happening or something, you know, have Dave come in.
Okay. Go ahead, Nick.
Okay, now number 2, Winona is on the agenda to talk about utilization of the area to the east of the airport, the safe zone of the runway. Oh, and I'd like to make note that Chris is here now.
Party.
So, we'll turn it over to Winona.
Thank you. Well, everybody knows me. I don't need to introduce myself, I think. Back earlier in the spring, there was an issue raised by Frank concerning the safe zone at the north end of the runway, just at the other side of 106. And I guess at the time, it occurred to me that most of us residents don't even think about that area unless we're driving along and seeing an airplane coming in. But that got me to thinking, anyway. Frank established, well, I think without a doubt, that there's no rental value on that property. In fact, he had suggested that the commission pay somebody to get in there and mow it. I've watched that parcel over the years, I mean, for the last 20 years. It's been hayed. Many, many years ago, someone had a corn crop on there that kind of wilted away. It's farmed out. There's nothing, you know, it's sand. There's nothing left there except June grass. And I got to thinking maybe a better utilization of that. And everybody's got a folder I gave you. Whoops. And if you look at the overhead, that's got the parcels on it, this one, parcel 21, and I kind of tried to outline that in red, orange.
I see it.
You can see that, that's that last parcel that the Bureau of Aeronautics bought back, I think, in 2017 or 2018. Does that look right to you guys? Yeah, and then they donated it to airport use. So that was all done by the Bureau of Aeronautics, and I had always thought that it followed that fence line. You can see the fence line clearly too, but that's not so according to what I found out at the county. I went up to land information and Jerry checked back on everything. So parcel 21 is what that is. It kind of comes in on either side of the runway. Anyway, I did some research on pollinator habitat. First place, it's really expensive to establish, but if you do it properly and with a proper procedure, there is grant funding available for the seed for that. I mean, the seed runs $1,800 an acre to do it right, and so there is a whole process to go through, and that's clearly outlined in the Habitat Establishment and Management Guide. And then there's another little section in here in the back, and that's something, it's a white sheet that was done by a guy up at Westfield, and he's kind of a guru in Wisconsin when it comes to prairie establishment, prairie reestablishment. And anyway, I've talked to him before. We have a farm, but his name is Paul, and he says that he has a little bit different take on once you get a habitat established that you can mow it instead of burning it. Because I said to him, burning that would be a problem right next to all those houses along there. But he says going in really early in the spring and mowing it is every bit as effective. You gotta mow it close. And you wouldn't do it till the second year. Anyway, I just put this together. I thought it'd give you guys a chance to look at what's involved if you've never done anything like this before. It's kind of complicated, but it's also very interesting. And it talks about the value of pollinator habitat and the process for establishing habitat. So if you think, you guys, that this is a reasonable use of that land, and you're interested in doing it, I'd be happy to look into it further, find out what grants are available, come back to you with a plan for the project, and I guarantee that any plan I come up with will not create an expense for the town taxpayers, and it won't create an expense for the commission. You might ask a little volunteer work, but no outlay.
What I would kind of wonder is, I mean, to apply for the grant, being that there are neighbors that we can't control what they put on their lawns, would that disqualify us?
No, it wouldn't, because unless you had a huge amount of drift, and people on lawns don't do that. I guess if you were next to a,
Well, it's just one of those questions, I mean,
sure,
if we now say we're bringing back the birds and the bees, and the neighbor's like, I'm blasting that crap, you know, I don't wanna lose
there's laws
the
against them
funding.
doing that. They can
Yeah.
do their own lawn, but that's not
Yep.
get it on us, and we can put a buffer lawn next to them.
I just wanna make sure if that's something we did do, that, if there are any disqualifying events?
Yeah, okay. And I can certainly kind of check into that a little bit
Yeah.
too, and be sure what the regulations would be on it. So is there, regular lawn spraying definitely wouldn't affect it. So it would be if they deliberately went over there and sprayed something in the prairie, would be a problem.
Well, Winona, have you checked the soil types out there?
That needs to be done. I'm happy to go do that. I've checked it at the county,
Yeah,
but
did
not
you look at
soil
maps?
tests.
Well, no, did you look at their soil maps though?
Yeah.
And what did they say? Is it all one type of soil or is it
No,
multiple?
there's a little bit different if you go down the side hill, a little
Mhm.
bit toward the woods. There is a wetland down in there, not on us, but farther down the hill,
Mhm.
there is a wetland. But it's so sandy there that it might be listed as highly erodible, but when you
It's not
establish.
did you check the federal wetlands registry?
Yeah,
It's not on there?
no,
Okay.
no, it's not. I'll tell you who noticed it was the gal that surveyed that for the airport.
Mm-hmm.
That, I can't think of her name, but the gal from the BOA, she's the one that noted the wetland. But it's not on the federal registry, I couldn't
So
find
then,
it on
if
there.
that sand and well drained doesn't have a high water table, it's probably gonna be more of a messy prairie then.
Yes, probably.
All right.
That's kind of covered in the information that I gave you to talk about the different types of stuff. One of the things that you are really careful with when you establish a prairie, you don't work the ground. It involves spraying it with Roundup. I'm not a big fan of it, but it has its place. And then you take a crop off, and as it starts to come back, you spray it with Roundup. Then ideally, you would find somebody that'd be willing to put Roundup Ready soybeans on that in the spring and spray it several times during the summer with Roundup. Because you don't want to disturb the ground. When you do, you're just bringing up all that old seed bank that might be in there. And all this land that's ever been worked in this part of the country has got a weed seed bank in it. There's no
So
question.
then, once this prairie is established and all, what benefit is the airport gonna see from that?
Well, I think it's going to be that you're providing a general benefit to society by helping pollinators, which we desperately need for agricultural land. If you like to eat, you need pollinators. And it will be beautiful for the entire community. A blooming prairie for pollinators is gorgeous. And as the regular prairies that we've reestablished around are pretty during the bloom season, but they're not as spectacular as the ones with a lot more forbs and flowers in it, like the pollinator habitats have. And so that, I guess, one of the big benefits is you wouldn't be having to worry about controlling it. It's other than mowing it once in the early spring. And what I would do is find out if we've got some volunteers, some people that would kind of like to adopt this and agree that, yep, I'll do it every spring and I'll mow it. And we've got, we have guys around with equipment.
And you said that would be $1,800 per acre?
If you bought the seed yourself.
Yeah, and then how many acres did you estimate there to be out there?
We're looking at about 2.4, 2.3.
Okay. Pretty small then.
Yeah, it's very small, but we wouldn't be buying the seed. We'd get it done.
Okay, I've got a question. Parcel 21, so that's 2 or 3 acres.
Yeah, right.
What about the parcel behind it?
Well, I didn't deal with that yet. I'm looking at
So-
the one in front of it. So then I think if you guys were really interested in doing the entire thing, we could ask for that. But what I looked at was just what was most recently bought. And David, isn't that considered something a little bit different than the stuff behind it as far as what's allowable on there?
Right, because Frank, up to a point, and it's not drawn on here, it's in the RPZ, where nothing can be built, put on there. It's a runway protection zone. After that, then it's still in the safe zone, but fences could be put there or something, but in the front area off of 106, nothing can be put there at all. So actually, it would even go a little bit beyond the 21. It's in, I don't have the thing in front of me, but it's the RPZ extends out a little bit further to a tree line.
To the back,
Not all the way to the back. You see where it juts out, like, looks like a thumb there of the back area? Looks like a piece of grass off to the,
yeah, I see that. Yeah.
okay. About where that tree line is the end of the RPZ. So we can't do much on that front area from there to 106. So planting, you could have a crop on there, you could have hay, you could have corn, you could have a pollinator. So,
I've got a few questions. First of all, would it have to be approved by the Bureau of Aeronautics?
I doubt it, because it's an allowable use.
Okay, one thing I've heard from pilots around here with my little stint of starting to be involved here and so on and so forth, is you're worried about animals. Animals, danger with the planes and so on and so forth. I've heard it from more than one person. I let my grass grow up in the lawn, and it's a foot or 2 foot tall, animals are gonna be building nests there. So that was a safety concern I had.
What kind of animals are they
But
concerned
that's
about?
grass, this is forbs.
Right, it'd be forbs and prairie grasses. What
Yeah.
kind of animals are they concerned about, do you know?
Well, I heard him talking about anything,
Well,
deer,
mice?
skunks,
Oh,
woodchucks.
well, you're gonna have those no matter what you got there.
Well,
Alfalfa and beans out here for them.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
the more of that type of habitat you have, the more there are gonna come out, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that.
And
You
you
know,
think the
what-
pilots, you think the pilots are concerned about that over in the Safe Zone?
Yes,
Concerned about,
yes.
about
Some
stunts?
flying up in it, the plane, yep.
Oh,
You ever read about the miracle in Hudson?
little mammals I'm talking about.
Well,
They
he's
don't fly
thinking,
up in
there could be
airplanes.
turkeys ended up over there.
Oh, yeah, that's possible. Okay,
He said that, yeah.
okay, so,
I've seen turkey hit a windshield of a car out here on 59.
Yeah.
All right, Winona, if you could do this and find out with the mixtures that would be recommended for that soil type,
sure, okay. let me
Find
put
out.
this down.
what kind of birds would most likely be in there?
Okay,
Also, deer, if they're gonna be in there.
well, they're in there anyway, I'm sure.
Well, but I'd like to know for the species of plants you're gonna
It
plant.
doesn't
And if
attract
they
them.
may favor that more than a
Okay.
soybean that's over here, or the
Alright.
alfalfa that's over here.
Does it attract deer? Okay,
When you mentioned that, I'm gonna tell you right now, I know somebody up north that put one of these in, it's gorgeous in the whole thing. And boy, do they get the deer out of there, at deer hunting season,
And the turkeys,
well, and the turkeys,
because I know who you're talking
but, yeah,
about.
Bill.
Well, that's why I'm asking you to find out what species favor what animal.
Habitat and habitat, okay?
What restrictions will we have if we get grant money? How long are we tied into something, for years?
That would depend on where you get grants. If you got one from the Bee and Butterfly Fund, I think it's 5 years.
And I also wonder, so if you establish this pollinator habitat,
Uh-huh,
what's to stop us from letting a beekeeper use that?
well, you-
Can we rent them the land with all the bees and the honey that come with it? Is that something that is against the rules of it?
no, it wouldn't.
No,
be.
that
would be
against
It's
what
the
we're
honey
promoting.
producers.
Well, you're promoting it, but we're now using it for profitability too,
Doesn't
so
matter.
I don't know how that,
Okay, I
that
can see.
is listed out, if you're getting a grant money to establish this pollinator habitat, I think you're actually kind of like doing honey farming.
Okay,
Does that,
can it be
Yeah.
rented to a beekeeper?
yeah,
Okay.
can you, it's just a question.
Okay.
And I guess, would it be any different than if it was just hay or grass or whatever is out there now?
As far
Yeah.
as wildlife, I don't think so, but it would be as far as pollinators. We have a guy that keeps about 150 hives on our farm, and because we do rotational grazing and we don't do any row cropping, and we also don't spray anything, so he has a huge honey operation there. And that's,
Okay, I understand the 2 acres is pretty small, but
it is, but it's
if it goes
beautiful.
bigger, then, like I said, that's something, way back in the corner, if there was a beehive there, somebody might find that to be attractive for whatever the habitat set up for.
Sure. We get a share of honey, is what we get, plus we get our hay, and the rest of it pollinated. Great benefit.
Quick question.
talked about the neighbors road. Do they have to approve this as well? What's the regulations or rules around neighbors to this? Do they have to approve or do they have no say? I'm just curious.
All right, let me ask you this one, Nona. Do you know how it's currently zoned?
It's zoned rural holding.
We'll hold it. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Did that change?
I got rezoned this spring.
And what is it now? Light industrial or something?
It's public institution.
Public institution?
I thought they didn't.
Put on
Your
your
pond.
Yes.
Put on your pond.
It was all of it.
Are you sure about that, Jeff? 'Cause I didn't think that was included in the rezone.
It was all of the airport lines. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Then it's public and institutional.
Yeah, that could pose a problem if we could
Okay.
do that or not. But they're not calling it agriculture here, so maybe it'll slide through, I don't know. You'll have to figure that out, Lenore.
Can we go back to my question?
Yeah, yeah.
Do the neighbors have any say on this? I'm just curious. I'm not saying they do.
Oh, I was gonna say, if it was agricultural one, they don't have a say so.
Okay,
Yeah.
But since this other one, it's a little gray area there.
okay.
I guess
So,
your-
well,
We
check
don't have
that
the
out.
answer
the
yet, so
question
let's
would
check
be,
that
does
out, yeah.
Yeah.
public and institutional
Yeah.
have an effect on it?
So back to when the guy approached me about cutting the hay down, baling, et cetera. I think I mentioned at a meeting that, Tiller and another person got a hold of me about wondering what was gonna happen there because the mice infestation over there, I guess, since the grass was growing in the last couple of years, got taken care of, was really bad. I'm just saying, they called me, not you, okay? So, I'm just saying,
Sure.
that's what happened.
Well, and then you let us know, and then we took care of it, but the grass has always been that way. Galoon, when he owned it up front, he was allowed to do that, and they'd cut the June grass like once a year anyways. It was never really mowed, it was not part of our, for forever, we've never done anything. And then like Winona said, they did have some crop, way back when.
Oh, yeah, I farmed it 40 years ago.
Yeah, so there was some folks that, that might have a complaint, but it's no different than other grass around, and we don't have to mow it. So,
Well, you mentioned neighbors, and, they're the neighbors, they're the village, but they're still neighbors to the airport, And now it is in the village. I'm just saying. Different things to think about.
that's why tonight was not a end-all, do-all decision, it was more of a,
Questions, I wanna know what you guys
it was
wanna
more of
know.
a, just to kind of look and
If
see if
you're
it's something.
interested, I'll go ask all
do,
these questions, and if there's no interest, I'm not gonna waste my
Right.
time.
The only other question I would ask, I'm not sure exactly where this parcel, I know it is, but is it part of any of the agreements or contracts we've signed with people to take care of it and mow it?
No.
Where?
It's
Right.
right.
Yeah.
He's saying it comes back to.
This isn't anything we've given anybody
No.
the right to mow and.
No.
Mentioned to me about
When, years ago,
the
we
clear,
had a right
if something happens,
but
it's
right after the airport.
those things.
But it also could have crop on there, I mean, we
Could be
could have a
soybeans,
farmer.
and deer love soybeans.
Yeah, so we could have soybean, it could have corn, so I mean, it's anything that's permissible there on that stuff, so, but.
So anyway, that's all
You
I
got
want to know.
critters
Do you
in
want me
the
to
dog
look
park.
into it or don't you?
Well, it's definitely something to digest, I think it's, again, like I say, we're not looking for a motion, we're not looking for a motion to really, approve it per se, but it's more of a curiosity, so I guess, what I would say is more of a unofficial.
Need more information.
Yeah, but I mean, is it something that you'd like Winona, would your vote be for Winona to look further into that?
If it gets us funding in a grant.
But even if it gets a grant and it goes right to the flowers and we're not gonna get any money, but as long as it doesn't cost the taxpayers any money, it doesn't cost the airport much except for maybe some diesel fuel to cut it or something like that.
Well, I think the question would be more of the PR that we'd have around here. What would the neighbors think?
I
Because
mean-
it is like your lot, it's,
Right.
you don't wanna have it. And we'd have to see what the other people that live down there would think. Yeah, I guess that would be something I'd really wanna know because
Sure.
they're staring at it every
Yeah,
day.
you don't want complaints all the
Yep.
time.
Well,
I
the
get
other
it.
thing too is, okay, the airport gets all its grant money. We wanna make darn sure that that's a grant, to say we got grants or something, one's not intertwined with the other, and now we have this problem, well, we can't do this, we
Sure.
wanna do
Yep.
that.
Those are good questions. So I guess, Frank, just on like a gentleman's thing, would you say that you would be willing to have Winona to continue looking at that and see, and to bring it back at a later date? I mean, this is just a preliminary, it's just a, is this something that
Do
right
we
away?
ever
is a-
look further into it?
Yeah, I mean, is it something that you think is a hard no, or is it a, let's look at it?
I won't say it's a hard no, but the no, my no to it is listening to these pilots that I have listened to in the last 2, 3, 4 months, and their concerns, and safety and so on and so forth.
Sure.
So my no would be for that reason right there, listening to pilots.
Can I make a suggestion? Would it be impossible to query the pilots and see what they thought about it? If they were
Well, that's an
concerned-
airport manager thing, would have to get the facts and would have to send it out and see, kind of get a consensus, and they'd have to get all the information, because they'd have to put that in relation to what happens if that'd be soybeans there, or
Yeah.
would be other ones.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think if we got some information as to, do these crops attract more
Sure.
turkeys and birds that are a problem for airplanes? Or
Yeah.
is it the same as if grass was growing there, or
Right.
soybeans or
Or
any other
soybeans
crop?
or- Yeah,
I mean, is it any different than
Sure.
whatever else goes on there?
okay.
Because, I mean, nesting birds are out there now, and butterflies don't really cost much to, airplane damage, But-
Right, right.
but,
But there's one big difference. Corn and beans have been there and so on and so forth.
which could go there again.
They could.
Yeah, but that's still attracting animals
Okay,
again, right?
they could if you allow it, okay? Now, because we would have to rent that land out to do that. The thing is, we didn't own the land before, somebody else did.
When we owned the back part, Don had that donated, there was about 10 or so acres that was landlocked, and the reason we got that front area is because that back area was landlocked. So we ended up going and buying that front acreage, so nothing could be built there, and then we'd have access to the back. So we've actually owned that back portion for quite a while.
Many years.
Right, but I'm just saying, move back, as things progress, farmers own that, Branson own that, and they farmed it, big deal, it was their land, it was their farm, and now it's the airport's.
Yeah, but again, it was the airport's, and then we were cutting hay off of it and stuff, so, or somebody was,
Right.
so.
Is there any DNR credits for this?
I haven't checked into that.
That's, because I know they have a lot of prairie things they do out there, and I'm just kind of curious if there's more sponsorship from that side deal.
Yeah, I looked basically at the bee and butterfly habitat thing, just because of the very expensive seed that they're willing
Yeah,
to
that's,
donate.
and that's, if it's something that, the DNR would sponsor into that,
Yeah,
might help,
partnerships are always looked on
Yep.
very, very nicely, and unfortunately, I don't think he ever did a crop report out there. If he had, it would be definitely be eligible for USDA cost sharing, but he never reported his crops, so,
Well, the USDA stuff usually takes a three crop year history,
and he doesn't have a
and it
crop.
hasn't done anything better than hay for the last.
Yeah,
But he
there
hasn't,
used to be,
filed for
there
it.
used to be corn way long ago. I
Yeah,
remember
but I mean,
that.
that's two, that's,
Yeah, 10 years plus, I know
right, so
that.
it's not eligible for
Right.
that is what I'm saying.
but if we rented it out for 3 consecutive years for soybeans or corn, then.
Yeah, but
We could find somebody to do
And the
it.
thing is the ground good enough for that now?
No, it's just farmed out. By the time you put enough fertilizer in there to get a crop off it, you probably wouldn't pay for your seed.
That's up to the farmer to decide that.
Right, and we don't see a bunch of them lined up out here trying to rent it.
So is
They,
that property smooth enough to do a close mow with the equipment we
I
have?
don't think we have finished motor wouldn't do that, it's too lumpy.
I've actually cut it, yeah.
Have you?
actually, yeah.
And it survived?
Yeah,
Anyway, I'm gonna get a hold of.
Oh, the hay vine, not the finish cutter.
No, but you.
No, like I said, I
but
don't know
it's-
if that
but
would make it through.
You'd set it up high enough to do it, but
Yeah.
it'd be fine. The worst is actually.
Well, this
by the-
calls out
by
like
the
a
ditch.
foot.
Yeah,
To do that, and for their standard cut, you have to be a foot, so.
yeah, that's
The
right.
hay vine.
The hay vine.
Standard process, they had one of these way behind my place, down by Kincaid Lane. I see they got rid of it, they put it in, what was that, 5, 6 years ago, and I see it's gone.
Yeah.
And Christine was really into it with the pollination and all this, that. when they started it, but it's gone, I don't know why it's gone. They
But
certainly-
even if it would go away or just go to like back to grass or something, so I mean, it's
What
no,
was the term of the grant? You know,
Yeah.
that could be it, I mean, it's hard to maintain it, and when the money's all gone from the grant, and,
Ours has been in for 26 years and it's
Yeah.
better every year, so. And we
but
won't
it's
look
a
back.
good point you bring up, Frank. I think that even if it was in there for 5 years, I think that might be no different than the farmer that might be interested in cutting the hay. Because, you know, to put a good hay crop, they'd probably spray it off, they'd probably plant alfalfa there, and it'd be on a 5-year contract, cause, you know, they're gonna wanna have a certain amount of time on that too. It's just utilization of some land. It's kinda like where the farmer has land away from the runway. You know, it's good utilization of the land, which I think is, you know, most people see it as a positive thing for the airport.
Right.
So that's just another area that we have where we can't build anything, can't land an airplane unless it's an emergency, so it's, as long as it doesn't cost somebody any money.
well, like I said, it's the neighbors that live back there, that part of the community, I think I wanna hear their take on it. You know, they look right at their back door, I mean, maybe they don't wanna see it, but maybe they would be in support of it.
Yeah, maybe they would just as soon have a grown hayfield, who knows, you know?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
like you said, you talked about the mice and everything else, if this is something that would be a different problem or a benefit to them, maybe it would sway our decision.
Yeah, and I'll leave that up to you guys. Let's do it this way. Why don't, why don't you guys do whatever you feel like you need to do as far as querying people before I go putting a bunch of time into this?
Okay.
And then if it's something you wanna go forward with,
I'll let you know.
you can let me know and I'll make a few more inquiries, and if not, you know, it was a thought. I happen to like things like that. It's a piece of land that's sitting there with no income for the airport, and a possible expense if you gotta start mowing it or whatever, or paying somebody to. So just a thought of something to do with it. They are spectacularly beautiful when they're done right, and it's, you know, it was just a thought. So
Yeah.
it doesn't make any difference to me one way or the other.
You know, it's also another thing I think I brought up at one of the meetings before, it's, you know, Palmyra has a lot to toot its horn about, and I think that this is an area that if used right, you know, we don't really have many of those around the country, around this area. So I think it'd be, I mean, I made mention to Frank about different positive things that Palmyra does have. This would be something that could be brought out. I mean, it's, you know, a hayfield's a hayfield, but if you get a park, you get something like this, that could be, because I know like Discover Wisconsin was out and they didn't put on the agenda to come to the airport, but that could be something that they, you know, that could be brought out. You know, that this is what Palmyra has. I mean, because we don't really have a lot of parks out here. We don't have, you know, different things. And, you know, I think this is a thing that we could put out there that might be a feather in our cap.
So how should,
So Wisconsin, Discover Wisconsin didn't come here? Because it was on the agenda Saturday.
Right, I didn't see it. And unfortunately, I was unable to make it, but when I looked at the agenda, they went and did the horse thing, and they went to a couple of other places, and then the airport was the latest agenda. I mean, I may have,
Because they had a pilot set to take off and land and everything, but I don't know if they ever actually made it out there.
right. I can't answer that. I wasn't able to make it out here on that. But, you know, I'm just saying, this might be something that might be interesting, that folks might, you know.
so how are we gonna go about checking with these residents?
Knock on the door, mail, I mean, that's, I can go over there and just knock on there with a pole with this
I'll tell you what.
information, I guess, I mean, that or the mailing addresses are public. You know, I just don't know what kind of response we'll get.
How many neighbors are there?
Well, looking at the houses here, there's only probably about like, what, 6?
Well, right adjacent.
Well, there's only the two.
Well, you got that, but then I guess would this be part of what we include?
No, it would stop in this area right
So
here.
just basically the ones across the
Right, yeah.
street?
But just be-
Because even if it goes up to this tree line, there's still
Yeah.
nobody anywhere near, still those two
Okay.
houses.
Well, if you're only doing the front section, 21, that's only section 21. That's only 2.5, 3 acres, she said.
Right.
2.4, did you say, Will?
Something like
2.4,
2.2,
2.8.
2.3, something.
But like I said, we
But
could
it
go,
goes a little farther if
Oh,
you're
yeah,
gonna
we
be
could-
doing that.
We don't know who these people are yet since the concrete guy left.
yeah.
So it's who now?
Brett, he was classic concrete masonry. Yeah, he left, so I don't know who moved in there.
You and I can work on that.
Yeah.
It's only two of us.
It's something
Maybe
we
if
can walk
Jeff-
over there and knock at
If
the
Jeff
door.
puts something out to the pilots. I mean, sometimes a consensus is also not necessary either, because people might have hidden agendas or different things like that. You have to kind of look at what's gonna be better for the airport as a whole and other things. 'Cause I mean, you have some pilots that don't want any flying, or some people that don't want any flying on Sunday afternoon after 4 o'clock. And so, I mean, if you ask people,
It's like jet skis on lakes.
right, it's like, you know, we don't want Piper airplanes flying out of here, so eliminate any of the PA-20s, or those RB-10s, yes. So I mean, sometimes, you know, you put a consensus out there, you have to kind of look at the big picture too. I mean, it's a good thing to look at everything, but I know like with pilots, everybody has an opinion, which is a good thing to check on. But, you know, they may not like the crops that are there, they don't want, there are certain folks that don't want flying at night. So it's kind of a slippery slope too on some of those things.
Well, that's part of, that was why I was asking Winona about what animals favor what plants.
Right.
Because it may be possible to put plants out there that deer don't like, and maybe turkeys don't like it or something.
I don't know if there's any schools that are into this habitat thing. I know it was kind of a topic when we were in high school, but
Well, we haven't checked it, I mean.
Oh, we haven't checked, but I mean-
Elmira has a very nice
we
program.
talk about the prairie restoration
Yeah.
projects that are around, and like I said, there might be something out there that, you know, if there's sponsorship for it to help cover the burden of it. You know, like I said, there's a lot of things that we could positively look on it. It's just digging into it.
Yeah, again, this is just preliminary, this isn't, we're not down that road too far, it's just more of just opening the line of communication, I think. I think we can all agree on that. Roland?
I have a question. It's an agenda item. Is there an action needed to table it until you get more information?
Well, me and Frank are gonna talk to the neighbors, and you're gonna send out something to the pilots, short and sweet. And then we'll report back to them, which direction we wanna go. If you wanna find any other evidence, like prairie restorations, you know, DNR, if there's anything like that.
Sure,
mean, just,
I can do that if you want me to.
just something
I
that.
guess what I'm saying is I don't wanna spend a whole bunch.
Yeah,
of
you know, I don't
time.
want you to put a ton of time into it, but I know the DNR is just right down the road.
Sure.
Okay, I'm gonna make a motion that this be tabled.
No, not yet. I had some stuff I wanted to say. I don't see any money in this for the airport.
No.
Currently, it's zero income, it's a liability. We have to mow it every now and then. If we can get grants to put,
Yeah.
well, you did, didn't you?
Yes,
So we
a
had-
farmer came by and mowed it, yes.
Yeah. So if you can get us up to zero out of pocket and occasional mowing, I wouldn't be against it. But I don't want it to become a liability where to meet these grants, we might have to mow 2-3 times a year, we might have to replant and stuff like that, because we can't afford it right now.
Exactly.
So as long as it doesn't cost us anything, I'm not against further investigation of it. I'm not saying we're gonna do it, but just to look at it further.
So I'll make a motion that we table it till the next meeting, whenever you schedule that.
Or it might be a special meeting in between.
Okay,
In case you come up with some really good stuff, yeah.
we're gonna check with the, people living over here, whatever the
Neighbors, yeah.
subdivision is. Jeff is going to check with the pilot, send something out. And I wanna know if there's anything that's gonna, interfere with anything the Bureau of Aeronautics has going for this airport. I don't want anything personally intertwined to where 3 years down the road, suddenly something were to happen, and we gotta do something, but we're hindered by,
I think we also have to check with the village and see if there's anything that's it.
so that's my motion.
Okay, well, we have a motion to table it until further information is brought in.
I'll second it.
Second by John. All in favor? Opposed? Looks like the all in favor go for it. So you have all your packets and stuff for that. Set the next meeting date.
And part of the tabling is you're gonna do your homework, right, Winona?
I'm gonna do some.
Okay. Because I'm gonna put that into the minutes, so.
Okay. Put it this way, I'm not gonna write any grant applications.
No, I wouldn't do that yet.
The meeting date?
Yeah, the meeting date. It'd probably be, in November, because we're gonna have to talk about the budget, the upcoming budget for the 24th.
The regular meeting date, when is it gonna be in November? I don't have a calendar.
Well, we haven't said it yet.
I understand, I'm asking what it is.
That's usually at the end of the meeting.
Well, I thought we were at the end of the meeting.
We're at the end of the meeting.
Oh, so it's the other meeting.
Okay, continue, Mr. Chairman.
So, anyway, we'll have to set the next meeting date in November. I mean, for me, the 6:30 works fine
That's fine.
on Mondays, so,
Leatherwood's been that for a long time.
so if you wanna look
You
at,
okay with that, Chris? 'Cause I know you have a hard time getting here.
Yeah, I'm usually screaming down Highway 59 to get there that time. Today I was early and sat down, I had a piece of pizza and the phone went, I'm like, oh crap.
at least you had your,
At least I had my phone, yeah. I don't have it now, but
so, let's look at the calendar, let's see, the dates, the first part of.
actually, I do have my phone. I can look at the calendar.
Okay.
First Monday of November. That's November
Sixth.
sixth.
Right after daylight savings,
Is
everybody should have an extra hour.
November sixth, sorry? November sixth,
That'll work.
because then we have our meeting the week after. That's why I was asking for the first.
Okay, so November 6th, 6:30. So,
All right, I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I got one other question. You mentioned the budget. Are you thinking of scheduling my meeting before that for a special?
well, I've gotta get with the airport manager. We have to make sure we go through this year of 23 and then get it ready for 24, because I know we've got a couple of expenses that'll be coming up that we have to talk about. So I think at that time we'd be, hopefully, have something for the budget at that point. So, okay, we have a motion to adjourn. Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.